Doesn't matter, man. Right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Stuart Roper at Armageddon Fit Strength and Conditioning again, Sunderland's #1 gym. Couple of things to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about how you prepare fighters and stuff, and also about how to recover better to get yourself ready for the next workout, I guess. So, I guess we'll start by we'll talk about your top level fighters. So we'll talk how far out would you say they would start training for a competition?
I like my fighters to be constantly fit, constantly ready to fight. So for the most part, they kind of train consistently throughout the year, not just for a particular fight. That gives them the opportunity, because there's a lot of pullouts in kickboxing and K1. There's always promoters looking for last minute fighters, and it gives them the opportunity to jump in and be more active instead of just sort of waiting for like fights at their match for.
Yeah.
If that wasn't the case, I would generally say 8 to 10 weeks for what you would class as a fight camp. 8 to 10 weeks is a good time, because they've already got a good level of fitness as well. It's kind of just sharpening everything and making it specific for the fight.
Alright, cool. So you would say 8 to 12 weeks
8 to
there?
10.
8 to 10 weeks there. Would you start them off specifically conditioning?
No.
Or just straight into everything?
It's for a specific fight camp. You have to periodise the fighters in terms of like your power development, your strength, your conditioning, your speed and agility, and all that kind of thing. I'm not going to say in which order that we do it, because there's a lot of personal trainers out there brandishing themselves as strength and conditioning coaches when they just know high intensity training. There's a difference between high intensity training and strength and conditioning, and particularly fight camps. But yeah, you periodise it over the 8 or 10 weeks, however long you're doing it, and you hit certain stages, certain aspects of the fitness at certain times.
Would you recommend fighters to lift weights, like obviously not bodybuilding type of stuff, but would you recommend them to lift weights in the camp?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, strength's got absolutely has a place. But again, as a fighter, you want to be strong, but the majority of fighters need to be as strong as they physically can while staying at a lower weight. So you don't want to be gaining too much muscle mass. You don't want to be putting like size on, that kind of thing. So again, you have to suit your strength training to what you're aiming for.
Well, obviously you've got like a weight category. Most fighters have got a weight category. So when it comes to lifting weights, you want to make sure they're not building muscle.
Yeah.
Or too much muscle in any way.
Yeah.
What about leg specific training, like weight training and stuff? Do you get them to do squats or deadlifts and things like that?
Yeah, you largely compound exercises for your squats, so your deadlifts, explosive leg movements as well. You can't beat your 4 main strength exercises for getting stronger. Your squats, your presses, your pulls, and your deadlifts. You can't beat them. All the other machines you see at a lot of the gyms, they work like individual muscles. Just do your squats and work your whole legs.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in all the big compound moves, like your squats, your deadlifts, your presses, pull-ups, shoulder presses, and all that. Because not many people know this, but machines, what you see in the gym, were actually invented for people with injuries.
Yeah.
So that work that specific muscle while resting the other muscles and things like that. So
it takes the instability out as well. Where a lot of the free weights allow you to work harder and engage more muscle groups because of the instability of like your strong side and your weak side.
So a little tip for people out there, I guess, is if you're looking at getting leaner and losing calories and stuff like that, try and stop away from the machines, because you're just working a specific muscle, which is good for bodybuilding, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at losing weight, body fat, burning more calories, you need to be doing free weights and things like that, I guess.
Yeah, you get stronger.
Right.
You get stronger.
So back to the fighting. Obviously, a lot of what you do is kickboxing, some boxing as well. You've got some fighters, haven't you, boxing?
Yeah, we get MMA lads training.
MMA lads as well. So how many times a week would you say they train, or how many times a day? Because
some of them, I've got one lad who's fortunate to train twice a day, given his job. I've got one girl who's fighting for a British title, British kickboxing title in a couple of weeks. She'll train 2, sometimes 3 times a day, and still work full time. So it all depends on how much they want it, how much they're willing to put in, how much they're willing to sacrifice of their leisure time to sort of chase their dreams.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got different tactics for different fighters?
Yeah.
Like, because obviously, I find in a lot of gyms, especially fighting gyms, everybody seems to fall into the same style because they're training with the same people all of the time.
Yeah.
And maybe the coach doesn't see that the individual potentials that you might have that fighter who's better on the feet, better movement on the feet, or you might have that fighter who's... I guess what I'm trying to say is they've all got their own specific... they're all better at doing different things, but I think it's easy is if you're training with the same people all the time, is to just fall into all your fighters sort of having the same style and stuff like that.
One size fits all. I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of the coaches that I know, and a lot of the reputable gyms, they'll kind of have the same principle as me, whereas like each fighter is an individual. I've got some high level K1 lads who are really explosive, really unorthodox, and then I've got some high level full contact lads and lasses who aren't as explosive or unorthodox, a lot more technical. And then the same with the MMA. A lot of the coaches they'll know their individual fighter strengths and weaknesses, and they'll adapt the training to match. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who has like that one size fits all approach. Again, I know there are some strength and conditioning coaches that will do the same thing for every person, and that's because they're not a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah. Well, on the strength and conditioning side of stuff, like you've just said, would you say, obviously, that person has their weaknesses, so you might need to work on them.
Yeah.
That other person has their weaknesses, so it's not one workout fits all.
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
So, sorry, I've got a bit of a cough and a bit of a bad throat.
Bless him.
And I'm poorly. A bit of a cold. So when it comes to, like, we're sort of just talking about the high level fighters that you've got here and things like that. How many have you got who are at, like, who would be able to fight for a British title?
I've got,
like,
at the minute, I've got 3 who could comfortably fight for, who were eligible to fight for British titles.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, and of those 3, again, training permitting, I'd happily put them in for European. 2 of them, the records would allow the European. One of them would have to get a few wins under his belt, but he's more than capable physically of doing it.
So what's the difference? How do them train differently from somebody who, say, isn't quite ready for the British title? They might have been training at the same time, or they train same people and stuff like that. Is it just commitment, do you think?
Absolutely. Attitude and application of the individual. Again, combat sports is a really selfish hobby or occupation. You see people all the time, like on TV or at local shows. I've done this for my child. I do this for my child. I do this for my partner. They don't. Combat sports is a selfish thing. You fight because you want to fight. There's not enough money in it unless you hit like sort of the glory ranks for kickboxing or the UFC and the Bellators for MMA. There's not enough money to sustain a living for yourself, let alone a family. So I'm not sure why they say I've done this for this person. Like if they really would that focus on earning money for the child, they'd go and get a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
They'd get a steady, stable job that's constantly paying money every month.
And I guess when you're not at the level to be fighting for the big promotion companies and stuff like that, it probably costs you more to train than you actually go for the fight.
It does. It absolutely does.
Definitely.
In kickboxing in the UK, it's not a lucrative sport. There are some promotions that'll pay quite a good purse for the fights, but again, it's nothing that they can make a living off.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a lonely sport as well, isn't it? Obviously, you've got a team behind you and you've got a coach and stuff, but it's up to you. Like, you're not relying on a teammate or a player. Once you're in that cage or the ring, it's all you.
Yeah.
How would you think do you think it's important mentally to work on your mental state, because you obviously, like I said, it's all you. It's your mind, your body in that ring. Once you get in that ring, your coaches, when you get back to the corner, your coach can give you advice and stuff like that. But all the training and stuff, like I say, once you get in that ring, get in that cage, it's all you.
Yeah.
Right, there's nothing, no one else there to help you.
Mindset is massively important. I'm on record as saying the fight game, whether it's kickboxing, MMA, boxing, it's 70% mental, 30% physical in terms of the amount of training that you do. It's still a massively physical sport and loads of physical requirements. But if you're not 100% certain of your abilities, your attributes, the training that you've put in, that can have more of an effect on the fight than anything that you haven't done in the gym. Mm-hmm. I've got some top level lads who are technically gifted, who are really good fighters, yet still doubt themselves, and it's that sort of level of doubt, even the smallest bit of doubt in the mind, can have a massive impact on how they perform. Mm-hmm. So mindset is really important.
And I think it's when you're training, especially if you're in an actual training camp, or whether you're actually just using a training camp to get fit or whatever, even if you're not competing, then building that mental strength and discipline can be just a byproduct of the training, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I say it even my normal fitness lot, the people that, because I train people who just hate to get fit, hate to lose weight. When it comes to sort of the last few reps or the last few sets of your exercises, when it's getting really tough, that's when your mental strength comes in, because your mind gives up before the body does. So if you can learn to control your mind, it enables you to get a few more reps out, a few more sets out, push yourself that little bit further past the level of fatigue, and that's when you get the biggest gains, the biggest improvements in strength and fitness, and obviously burn the most calories.
So I want sort of an outline of somebody's training camp from the beginning to the end. What would I would say, if the average person probably trains once a day for training camp, maybe it might have a day off, a week of rest.
Yeah.
What does their training camp look like from the beginning to end?
I would always recommend 2 days rest, especially when you're training for a fight, because that's when your body recovers, that's when your body grows.
Would you have the 2 days consecutively?
Either consecutively or split. Most people will have like one off during the week, possibly a day off at the weekend. Some people only have 1 day off. That's absolutely fine, as long as you're getting a rest day. Because the amount of times I see people having to pull out a fight because of stupid niggling injuries, because they're not giving the body enough time to rest and recover. I'll use one of my girls who's fighting for a British title in a couple of weeks as an example. She trains technique, as in like sort of pad work combinations and stuff, 3 times a week. She does 3 conditioning based sessions a week, and 2 strength based sessions a week.
So what's the difference between a conditioning session and a strength based session? Just like you said before, strength and conditioning coaches.
Yeah. Strength training, it's low reps, low sets, but heavy weights. Especially in the fight game, you don't want to be blasting yourself to fatigue every single session, because we're not looking to get as big as we can. We're looking to get as strong as we can, while not putting the mass on. So your low reps, your low sets, but go heavy. You want to be, you're talking like 75%, 80% of your 1 rep max sort of stuff. The conditioning, it's about pushing your body. It's about becoming best friends with fatigue. It's about becoming as tired as you physically can, as often as you physically can, so that when you step in the ring or step in the cage, because you do get tired in a fight, don't care how fit you are, how well conditioned you are, you'll get tired in a fight. And if you're not getting tired in a fight, you're not trying hard enough, you're not doing what you're capable of doing. But the idea of becoming best friends with fatigue is so that when you get tired in the ring or the cage, you know you can fire some more punches, you know you've got another takedown, you know you've got some more kicks, you know you can defend yourself, because you've been more tired in training. It's about getting that level of tiredness in training where it just doesn't bother you anymore. I'm really tired, I'm absolutely shattered, but I know I can still keep doing what I need to do.
Cool. So you said obviously you need days rest and you to rest and recover. How would someone fighting recover to be ready for their next workout, next training session?
Food is a massive plays a massive part in recovery. So eating well, eating healthily, eating a balanced diet, not restricting your calories too much. Obviously, if you're trying to make weight, if you need to sort of lose weight for a fight, you need to have that calorie deficit. But again, your nutritionist or your dietitian who you're working with, who's setting the plans for you, will have that all mapped out. There are some supplements. There's loads of supplements. Sorry, that sort of target recovery. The one that I use and the one that I get my fighters to use is your branched chain amino acids, just in your water while you're training, aids recovery. And then obviously you've got your like your cold baths or your Epsom salt baths, that kind of things. Sports massages are really, really effective for recovery as well.
I like to use a foam roller. I foam roll every other day, like, and it's sped up my recovery massively.
Oh mate, I used to spend 10-15 minutes a day during
it hurts, like, but
it's awful,
it's worth it.
It's awful. But yeah, again, it's I was fortunate enough to have Craig Morrison from Vitality Sports Therapy, who worked out at the gym, and he was able to sponsor me for a few of my fights, so I'd be getting regular sports massages, and that was a massive help,
nice.
Especially towards the end of my career, to keep us going, to keep us training.
Would you say stretching is a good form of recovery?
Yeah.
Would you recommend your fighters to stretch after every workout, or?
They should be stretching before and after the workouts anyway.
Obviously, kickboxing isn't. Yeah. You need to be flexible and be stretching out and stuff.
Yeah, you have your warm ups, then your static stretches. At the beginning of your session, at the end of your session, you should always have. Although I suppose it depends what you're doing. It's good to have a cool down, especially if you've pushed the boundaries of what you can do.
So, what do you give your fighters diets, or do you just give them a sort of outline of what they should be eating?
I give them food plans, and again it depends, because each of my fighters have got different dietary requirements or different likes and dislikes. They know what they should and shouldn't be eating anyway, and fortunately a lot of ours sort of fight quite close to the natural weight, the natural walk around weight, so they don't have to lose too much.
I think that's it. You see a lot of fighters who, like, out the season, or they haven't got a fight coming up, and they'll just pile the weight on, like, and it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
When he was boxing, he used to just balloon right out.
He used to fight around 9 stone, down. Didn't he?
Crazy.
But he'd walk around at 12 or 13 stone. And that's fair enough, that's what he used to do, but
not everybody can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes some discipline, that, like, from going from that size to being disciplined over his camp. But again, it's not great for the body, it's not great for the metabolism. So I would always recommend people fight around near to what they walk around. Especially in the amateur game, you don't want to be you can't afford to do water cuts, you don't have the advantage of the day before weighing or anything like that. Don't stress about, like, cutting weight or dehydrating and all that. Fight as close to your natural healthy weight as you can, and the fight becomes so much easier as well.
Would you recommend the still train to take over?
Yeah,
rather than just, like,
fights.
Stop.
Absolutely. Again, I'm quite fortunate with the majority of mine. My athletes, my fighters, they'll train consistently. Most of them will have a fight on a Saturday or a Sunday. They'll be back in the gym by the Tuesday or the Wednesday. That's
good.
And it's not because I force them to, because I always say have a week off, like, I rest and recover properly, but they're straight back in, and it allows them to fight more regular.
I think it can be scary, especially for somebody who's fighting at a high level, to have too much time off, because they'll be, like, it's easy. I've done it. When I was boxing, you have time off, and then a week off. I'll have 2 weeks off. I'll get back into it. Then you're like, I'll have another week off. I think it's very important to keep yourself up on that level mentally and physically before you lose it, because you have to maintain it. It's not something that you can just stop doing and still have.
It's much harder to lose it and try and gain it back than just to keep taking over.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, some of ours, when they're not fighting, when they don't have a particular date for a fight, they'll still train consistently and train quite hard, but they'll never push themselves as far as they do when they have that end date, when they've got that fight lined up. That just allows them to get that extra 15-20% out during the workouts.
Have you got any fighters coming up fighting for any titles out soon?
I've got Danielle Danielle Highmore. She's fighting for the IKF British title on the 21st. She's our first female fighter to fight for a title. It was due to be a Northern Area title, but our original opponent withdrew, and they couldn't find anyone in the northeast, in the north, for Danielle to fight. So the promoter spoke with the IKF, and Danielle's record allows it as well. She's in contention for the British. So they changed it to a British, which opened the scope for opponents. So they were able to go to Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. In the end, they managed to find a girl in Scotland who stepped up.
So if there was nobody for her for Northern Area title, does that make her automatically the Northern Area champion or not?
Nah. Well,
technically, I would say yes.
Technically, yeah, but I wouldn't. She wouldn't have took that title if she'd have turned up on the night and there was no opponent to fight.
She wouldn't have just been handed it.
Yeah, I've seen it before where people turn up and then due to one reason or another the opponent miss weight or something. There you go, you're the new title holder. I know for a fact Danielle wouldn't take that title.
It's not the same being handed it and not working for it.
Yeah, but I mean, fair play. You've that fight still put the graft in for that many weeks. It's not their fault the opponent didn't train. So I understand why some people take it, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not judging, you know.
So how would you, if your fight is needed to cut weight and they were add a bit on, like what would be that process? Or
they don't cut weight. I think a lot of people kind of get losing weight and cutting weight sort of mixed up for fights. They lose fat. And that's it. And again, it just comes down to eating, controlling the amount of calories that they're eating, controlling the type of foods that they're eating, cutting out your junk foods, your rubbish, your pops, your crisps, all that kind of stuff.
Are you constantly weighing them before the fight?
No, I've got a couple that I kind of weigh regularly, and it's more for their benefit just to keep them on check. But for the most part, the majority of my fighters are really good with the weight. They're quite self-disciplined.
I think the UFC are on about putting something in place so that after weighing a few weeks before the fight, rather, because people are like nearly killing themselves cutting weight and stuff.
Well, ONE FC, the fighting championship, I think Japan. I think it's Japan's. I'm not sure if they did, but they were looking to introduce like weight brackets in a fight camp. So, say if you were fighting at a certain weight, you could only be 20% heavier than that at your walk around all season. So they would regularly check weight, and there had to be a certain percentage from fight weight within the last week, and it was to do with, because unfortunately over the last couple of years it's becoming a bit more commonplace where fighters all over the world are dying during the weight cut. They're basically dehydrating themselves past the point that the body and they're killing themselves by dehydrating too much. So the ONE FC, I know they were talking about it I think last year, and again I'm not sure, someone will probably put us right whether they've brought it in or whether they're going to bring it in, but I thought it's a really good idea because it's stopping people from doing ridiculous water cuts, which is seriously hampering not only the performance but the health. And if the UFC were to bring that in, that would.
I know they were talking about whether they're bringing it or not. I'm not sure. It's definitely a good idea.
I hope they do, because some of the water cuts and weight cuts that some of their athletes do are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, look at we use Conor McGregor, although he's not flavour of the month at the moment, he's a bit of an idiot. But him fighting at 145 pounds, by the time he rehydrated before fight, he'd be fighting at 160 pound in that ring. That's how he was so dominant in the 145 division. He was much heavier, much bigger than all his opponents, and it became apparent when he fought the first time he fought Diaz, that he wasn't. Obviously, he was still powerful in his shots, but when he was putting all his force through his punches and hitting Diaz has been hit harder than that, and it wasn't putting him away like he did the 145ers. And that again, that comes down to the weight cutting, and it's an advantage because some people have got really good advice and know how to do the weight cut, so can cut ridiculous amounts of fluid. But then that's unfair on the others that don't have maybe the privilege to know people who know how to do it.
Well, Thingy was meant to be fighting Khabib on Saturday. Holloway. He was trying to cut weight and they declared him unfit to fight. And same thing.
And that's it. Plus, as well, when you do dehydrate, it has a massive effect on the brain, because your brain shrinks and re-expands when you hydrate. So if if you're slightly dehydrated, slightly dehydrated than normal, and your brain's a smaller size, when you get punched in the head, your brain rattles around much more violently, and it can cause much more sort of dangerous and life-threatening injuries.
Never thought about it that way, because obviously water is a good cushion for the brain.
Yeah.
In a way. But that's crazy.
To use the UFC as an example, Joanna, who fought Rose at the weekend, the first fight they had, Rose knocked her out in the first round, and Joanna, she cited her water cut. Her weight cut was really difficult and wasn't great.
So do you reckon that had an impact?
That could have massively had an impact on the fact that she got knocked out then, whereas Saturday just gone, she went 5 rounds with her, taking the same power punches, but they didn't knock her out.
That was a good fight, that.
It was a really good fight, yeah.
Rose's front kicks, is that what you call them? Front kicks?
Yeah.
Just straight up into my face.
Yeah, nice.
Good
I like both
kickboxing
of them,
fight.
really good fighters.
Do you think it was fight of the night, or not? UFC declared it fight of the night?
I don't think it was, if I'm honest. There was a couple. Zabib. Oh, what's his name? The other Russian lad from.
I know what you mean. I find it hard to keep up with the names in the UFC.
That fight was really good, and then the fight after that was really good as well. There's some
up and coming title fight, title fights.
For all the cards, Dana was saying the card was cursed in the run up. It was a really good card. From the fights that they had out, was a really, really good card. It was
they actually still sold out and made a fortune off pay-per-views as well. I thought Connor's incident would have, because 3 fights were cancelled because of that one.
Yeah.
Stupid. He threw it all away. Probably does. He gets sued for millions.
I hope he doesn't get rewarded for it, because it's a really bad example to set.
I think it'll definitely promote the McGregor-Khabib fight.
Yeah, and it will. But what you'll find, my personal opinion, see if they have it in Moscow in September, or even if they have it in Ireland at a later date, some of the fans that have been attracted to the sport because of Conor McGregor's behaviour, they're not martial artists. They don't know martial arts. They don't train in the sport, and they'll boo fighters.
Just like you said, it was like he's turning it into like football.
Yeah,
the type of thing.
Yeah, they'll boo fighters. The Ric Flair woos during fucking events, man. How way. Take Joe Lawson on there. Joe Lawson on Saturday night UFC. His corner chucked the towel in end of the second round because he was getting absolutely annihilated. He was taking loads of punishment. His eyes were closed. His blood was dripping his eyes. It wasn't safe for him to fight. His corner, rightfully so, pulled him from the fight. To which the audience booed.
That pisses me off. I've seen it just in local fights and stuff like that. You get the coaches. What's the point in letting you fight a fight when they're obviously taking a lot of punishment?
Yeah.
They're obviously not winning the fight. The top thing for any coach is keeping the fighter safe.
Yeah.
Obviously you're gonna get punched and stuff like that fighting, but safety, it's so easy to sustain brain damage. People don't realise it. Just acute. You looking at someone might not see it, but when they've been taking punches over the years and stuff, they might be thinking slower. Drunk punch. Yeah. Punch drunk, or whatever you call it.
And the corner knows the fighter, so as soon as he sat down on the chair, he'll have been able to see from his eyes. And Joe Lawson wouldn't have wanted him to put the towel in. I know for a fact he would have fought, but the only thing that he was going to happen would be to take more damage. You don't often see the towel get chucked in MMA because, to be fair, for the most part, the referees are really on point with that. They can see when the fighter's taking damage. So for the most part, the corners generally don't have to. But I thought it was a really sensible decision, and I was like I say, I was shocked the fact that the audience booed the fact that a fighter had been withdrawn, for his safety. And it shows you when they're booing stuff like that, they don't know the sport. They've never competed in the sport. They don't know anyone who competes in the sport.
Well, that's it. It's MMA is a complex thing to understand. I can remember, boxing's been my sport most of my life. But I remember I used to always be grappling, they're just rolling about. They don't know,
Mate.
But when you actually do it, how technical and how tough it actually is unbelievable compared to watching it. You can watch it and not understand what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Unless you try it yourself.
Yeah.
And they could be getting all kinds of positions and stuff like that. But just watching it, they look like they're just rolling about, not doing anything. Yeah. But it's a very technical thing. Did you watch the Joshua fight?
No.
Did you not watch it?
No.
I didn't miss much.
Again, over the last few years, boxing's been diluted. It's not what it was in the 90s. And I think that's largely due, again, to the pay-per-view stuff. Because they'll put
It's money.
Yeah, they'll put one decent fighter on a card of 5 or 6 fights, and they'll charge you 20-30 quid for it. So it's taking it away from your average people, your average kids who can't afford your pay-per-views. They're not able to watch as many superstars and heroes, like boxing heroes, when like we were growing up. It was every Saturday night there was a good boxing show on, and you had like your Bens, your Collins, your Eubanks, your Tysons, your Lewises, your Holyfields. Do you know what I mean? You could name a good handful of fighters who were world level.
I think there's too many promotions, too many belts in boxing now. Like, I think there's about 6, 7, might even be more, and it's stupid. Like, obviously you've got different promotion MMA companies, but you have to stick with them. You're contracted under them rather than just having all these different world titles and stuff. It's like any sport. I think most sports over the years, like football, boxing, MMA, even though it wasn't as big as it is now, they used to compete in their specific sport for hardly anything. Yeah. Just because of the love of doing it. Now it's just like, how much money can I make?
Yeah.
And just,
and some, you see some of the boxers coming through, they're kind of looked after for the first few fights. A lot of the opponents are cherry picked for 8 or 9.
Definitely.
Before they sort of set the real test. And again, it's to build a brand, it's to build an interest, to build money. I understand that, but it can hamper the sport a bit.
Yeah, I think they can hype the fighters up by giving them warm up fights. But the fighters are not actually exposed until they get put into a tough fight.
Yeah.
And I think it's bad because I think the fighters can get comfortable getting the easy fights.
Yeah, I think as well the fighters don't want easy fights. Even the boxers, they don't want the easy route. But as powerful as boxing is now, especially the promoters, the fighter has very little say in what goes on. Like if they want to make money, the promoter will go, right, you're going to fight him. Mm-hmm. And the fighter's going, right, no bother, just turn up and do a job.
I think, what do you think about like MMA versus boxing, like fighters fighting each other? Do you think it's bad or good?
I think it's ridiculous. You hear it's happening more and more now since the Mayweather-McGregor fiasco. And
Mayweather's just got his MMA license as well.
Because he'll not last a minute in a
not even with a semi-pro MMA fighter.
Nah, like, absolutely not.
Completely different.
But in saying that, Mayweather's been wrestling for many years, because in America,
I did not know that.
Yeah. With America, it's like wrestling's part of their curriculum at school. You know how like England, we've got football, cricket, netball, and rugby at school.
I think it should be in this country now, especially on the MMA scene and stuff.
Absolutely should, because it's not only is it really good for fitness, it's excellent for self-defense and getting out. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, and as well, we're kind of bordering down the route of like, everyone gets a prize. It doesn't matter what event they'll be running a race. Everyone gets a prize for participation, to not offend those kids that are not as athletically gifted.
But like, if Mayweather does have an MMA fight, and I think he will, because he's got MMA license, Dana White says the money's there for him. And I watched something yesterday that he was saying that he said, I'm coming out of retirement and but I'm not going to be fighting in the ring. It's going to be in the octagon. Yeah. Mayweather's own words. He wouldn't, if there wasn't any money in it, he'd be like, well, why would I do that? Nah. He's trying to make, he'd probably get $1 billion easy off the fight, off an MMA fight.
I don't know if it'll be that much, but he'll make a good few quid. Otherwise, it'll not be worth his time.
Crazy. And he'll have to fight someone really good, or it'll not make money. That'll be the thing, and he'll just get hammered. And it'll probably, to be fair, I think it will be fixed if he was to have an MMA fight. Not fixed so he would win, but fixed so it will be entertaining. Yeah. Just like the Mayweather-McGregor fight. Mayweather fought completely different in that fight from what he usually does. Yeah. It's almost as if McGregor was letting him, or Mayweather was letting McGregor come forward, and then Mayweather started coming forward when it's not his style of fighting at all. I think
Mayweather played that fight really well. He let McGregor have the first 4, possibly 5 rounds. Just have a look at him, because he's not fought anyone as unorthodox as McGregor. So his first 4 or 5 rounds, Mayweather was just letting him play, just seeing where his shots land, see where his hands go after strike. Any time he could have stopped him. And he knew
McGregor fatigues after a while, because that's McGregor's downfall, is fatigue, and like into them later rounds.
And that just goes to show you how good a boxer Mayweather was, because he did, like, see, he let McGregor have the first 4 or 5 rounds and still won the fight comfortably.
I think the one fight that I would like to see McGregor fight is Diaz 3. And I think it would lose. I think McGregor would lose, definitely.
That's got to happen. I see the thing again, banging on about McGregor. I'm not a fan of his, but he's lost. To be a mixed martial artist, especially at that level, fighting the animals that you're fighting, you've got to have that self-discipline and drive and want and will to do it. When you've got all the money in the world sat at home, I believe he's finding it hard to motivate himself to take that punishment, not just of the fight, but the camp in particular, the training. Because he said before he signed the UFC, he says, I want to fight in the UFC. Every paycheck I'm going to spend every penny I get, so that I'm hungry for the next one, so that I have to win and have to earn. Whereas now he's got more money than he knows what to do with.
He doesn't need a fight.
He absolutely doesn't need to. And we've spoken before, like how difficult the sport is. Not sort of self-discipline, and if you haven't got that want or the desire to do it 100%, then why would you do it?
Exactly. I think a big thing, especially in his case, was to get the money.
Yeah.
And that was it. What do you think would have happened in the Tony Ferguson Khabib fight if they fought? How do you think it would have went?
I think it would have went similar to how Ally Quinta went. But I think Khabib wouldn't have stood up as much with Ferguson as he did with Ally Quinta. He was, and Khabib fought the fight he needed to fight. He won comfortably, and hats off to Ally Quinta. I hate to say it, but he did well to last 5 rounds. I don't think anyone gave him a prayer. It was a good fight, and then but people are banging on about Khabib being a rubbish striker, an amateur striker. He's not.
He's got a good job.
Yeah, I mean it's an unorthodox jab. He wouldn't fight like that against. He like I say, he wouldn't stand like that against Ferguson. He would just literally maul him to the ground and punch the lips off until he left the limb out and he'd snap it off.
I think Max Holloway would have lost in the first few rounds.
Yeah,
I think that would have been different, but
it would have been a good fight. I like Ferguson. He's a really exciting fighter, and again he's unorthodox and he's powerful and he's fit. But it's a shame it didn't come off. Like, fingers crossed it does happen. But what's that, the 3rd time it's been scheduled?
Well, it's usually Khabib pulling out because of injuries and stuff, isn't it? And trying to cut weight.
But again, at that level, when they're training that hard and that consistently, injuries are commonplace. Most fighters, even at sort of grassroots amateur level, most fighters will fight with an injury.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, you just get on with it, as long as it's not like breathing or it's not affecting your movement with your legs. They'll fight through it.
Definitely. Do you believe in, like, obviously a high level MMA or kickboxing, whatever you want to put it towards, but say you fight 15 minutes altogether, 25 minutes altogether, like, why do you think it's important to be training for like 90 minutes to 2 hours? Some people do. It's not, is it? No. Like, I don't believe in it.
I see, again, going back there, a lot of PTs who claim to be strength and conditioning coaches, they'll do a 90-minute conditioning class.
My conditioning workouts now last 45 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
And I'm having like a couple of minutes rest in between exercise and stuff. I don't feel the benefit from it.
Definitely. I'll use Danielle as an example. She was in on Tuesday last week. We've done a conditioning session. She done 15 minutes of work, 15 minutes of training, and she crawled out of the gym.
Well, that's it. What's the point in training, doing strength and conditioning or anything like that? I understand when you're doing technical work because it's not really taxing on the body as much. Yeah. Because you're just working on technique and stuff. But when it comes to conditioning and strength work and that, you're not going to be, you're in that ring or the cage. You're not going to be in there for more than 15 minutes. Yeah. On normal level fighting, and anyway, it's not.
Like I said, Danielle's fighting 5 2-minute rounds, so it's 10 minutes of work on the night. And like I say, the 15-minute session the other day was awful. Bless her. Like I say, she come in, and she crawled out. But doing 30 minutes of conditioning is counterproductive. It's going to set the body to a wrong time. So if you're used to sort of putting everything you have in over 30 minutes, when you come to do 15 minutes, you're not going to be performing as efficiently as you can on that 15 if if you've been training.
The
for
intensity
30.
is going to be lower, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
It's the same as you see people doing, say if they're fighting 2-minute rounds in kickboxing, for example, you see some cornermen doing 3-minute rounds on the pads and stuff. But again, that can be counterproductive because you need to have the body used to firing and all your time and your speed and your power and everything for the 2 minutes. If you're training over 3 minutes, everything's going to be slightly slower to last the 3 minutes as opposed to the 2. That's just my personal opinion.
Right. I believe the same. Like you see people training for like 2 hours and that per session and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the conditioning, it comes down to whatever sport you do, your conditioning has got to reflect the output for what you're doing. Because I get football teams in and we do conditioning with football teams. I don't do 90 minutes of conditioning, even though the match is over 90 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Because they're not the output's not for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They're jogging most of the time.
Same as like the conditioning sessions I put my footballers through, completely different to what I put my fighters through. What I put my fighters through, completely different to what I put the rugby players through, and the swimmers and do you know what I mean? So you've got to match your conditioning to your sport. Otherwise, it's just like it's just high intensity training.
Right. Got anything you want to add to anything?
No, I don't think so, mate.
I think we'll call that a wrap then. Because I've got to get to work to be job. Don't want to cut. Cheers, mate. It's been good.
Thank you for having me, mate.
I've been dying to cough.